Well, we go deeper into the offseason as we enter this summer with a couple question marks, both on the quarterback side of the ball and also with coaches. That's right. We're going to talk about some teams who have a quarterback who's on the hot seat and some with coaches or both. This is the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. Adam Wright, CJ Medeiros, Justin Tucker with you as always. So, guys, as I mentioned, we have a great episode planned for you guys today. And we're going to talk about the quarterbacks and coaches who might have their jobs on the line here. And we're going to start with quarterbacks. So, guys, do we have any picks to lead off here? What are we thinking?
CJ can go first.
Oh, thank you, Justin. I think Trey Lance of the 49ers. Now, let me tell you a little something about Trey Lance. You see, honestly, he should thank his lucky stars he's even in a make-or-break year. Because if you ask me, last season, Josh Purdy oh, my God. Brock Purdy.
Huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The new quarterback.
Who was the Josh you were thinking of? Usually you'd mix up a couple of names.
I don't know. Anyway, so Brock Purdy, he last season, 2022, I believe, stole that job from Trey Lance. He really did. And then he got hurt. And the only reason Trey Lance is starting is because Purdy's hurt. And I believe that Shanahan was even ready to call him QB1 before they knew the extent of the injury. So if Trey Lance fails this year, I truly believe he's done in San Francisco. Because if he fails, then the Niners are just going to say, all right, we're just going to stick with Purdy. You know?
Yeah. I mean, this is literally like his very last chance to prove anything because the 49ers were fully ready to just move on from Lance this offseason and trade him. Now they actually have no other choice but to commit to him and give him one more chance. So if he screws up now, then that's it. That's it for him. But another player that I kind of look at is Mac Jones. There has been plenty of excuses for him. And I understand the excuses. You know, the coaching has not been stellar for him. And he also hasn't had the best weapons. He's had okay pieces, but not good enough to excel in this league. And also, the offensive line has been slowly declining for the Patriots in years past. Now a lot of that has been shored up. They added a legitimate offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien, and they've added more pieces for him to throw to. May not be high end, but enough for him to prove himself. Offensive line is still a little questionable, but he could figure it out if given the right tools in the offensive scheme, which it looks like they have. So this is it. We're in year 3. He has to prove that this past season was a fluke, and his rookie year, the year where he made a Pro Bowl, was the real year where it was the real Mac Jones. So let's see. Now, I also happen to think that two things can be true at once, right? It can't all be it's not Mac Jones's fault, because ultimately the quarterback is the most important position on the field, especially on offense. So when you look at it that way, I mean, yeah, the Patriots struggled last year, but he's supposed to have a lot of those things figured out. And if he is the elite quarterback that he could be, then he figures that stuff out. So Mac Jones is a player who I am looking at this year and saying, if you screw up, man, if you don't show any sort of signs, that could be problematic.
I think that he will show you signs, considering he doesn't have a defensive coordinator as his OC or a special teams coach as his quarterbacks coach. But
yeah, that's huge.
We'll see. We'll see for him. For me, I think I'll just go from a simpler route, and I think it's just going to be a simple one. Whoever is the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. I think we all are in agreement that Anthony Richardson is a project that will come down later down the line. I think the Colts are focusing on that for the long-term future of the franchise. And so I think they'll try to find like a starter for this year, thinking they probably won't make the playoffs this year and then focus on next year. So whoever is going to fill in that role is going in there with the understanding I'm not going to be the franchise guy. I need to make the most out of the season with the weapons that I'm surrounded with, and we'll see what we do from there. They have Joshua Taylor, they have Michael Pittman. I want to say, is it Pascal?
Zach Pascal.
Zach Pascal, yeah.
Yeah, they have few pieces here and there, and I want to say they got somebody in the draft, but I can't recall off the top of my head. And they picked up someone.
It was Anthony Richardson, right?
Yeah.
No, you mean at the quarterback position? Yeah.
I'm just talking about weapons in general for like weapons.
Yeah.
I think they did. I'll check.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Keep going.
But overall, I think I wouldn't say it's a make or break year. I think it's just an opportunity per se, just to see what they have. An opportunity for a backup quarterback to potentially start, show what he has, and maybe move on to another team once Anthony Richardson starts to develop into the franchise quarterback they think he can be.
Tuck?
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that you brought up they drafted a weapon. They did. It was Josh Downs.
That's what yep. That's a weapon. That's a weapon.
So the only reason I'm skeptical on whoever plays quarterback for the Colts, I mean they drafted Anthony Richardson 4th overall for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's not like whoever is at quarterback, if they decide that Richardson isn't fit to lead yet, is going to stay even if he does play well. If he plays well, then they'll just trade him somewhere else. I mean, what I would really be worried about is that offensive line rather than the pass catchers, because that it has gone down and they really haven't done anything to address it this offseason. So if they're worried about anything, it should be that, and whoever's that quarterback, that they don't get killed rather than having the pieces, because they have it. They have some guys. So I mean that's kind of what I would look at.
Yeah. But when I'm looking at their like line, if they can stay healthy, which is a big if because it's the Colts line, and we know how injury prone they can be through the Andrew Luck years. But if they can stay healthy, I like the pieces that they have. I mean, of course, they got Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly at your left guard and center positions. Braden Smith is your right tackle, and Raymond as their left. So when I'm looking at the team, I'm like, all things considered, if you take health out of the equation, this could low-key be a playoff caliber team if they can just stay healthy with the line and the weapons surrounding the quarterback. Right now, they have Gardner Minshew as the starting quarterback. I think this team might be a threat in the AFC South. I don't think they'll be a threat in the AFC, but in the AFC South, I think they're a threat to be contenders.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
give them some time. I think it's gonna matter about it's gonna be all about Anthony Richardson's development. So if he can adjust quickly to the NFL, then great. It might take a couple years though. But one that I don't want to take all your glory here, Tuck, but I wanted, if you want to elaborate on Justin Herbert before we started, I thought that was a solid take, because it feels around the league, it's just so what's the word? Unanimous that this guy's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, yet they have one playoff appearance to show for it. I mean, give me a little bit on that.
Okay, so before the show, me, Adam, and CJ were talking about quarterbacks in the hot seat, and I thought of a quarterback that I don't think his job is on the line, but his place within the hierarchy of AFC or NFL quarterbacks is on the line. And I thought Justin Herbert, because he's shown flashes of what a quarterback he could be, and people tell me all the time that he's a top 5 quarterback, and I'm like, okay, show me. He has one playoff appearance in 3 years. Okay, not bad, but within that playoff appearance, he did not play well. He played horrendously, even worse than Trevor Lawrence, who threw 4 interceptions in that game. And I still thought Trevor Lawrence outplayed him, especially in the second half. So when I look at Justin Herbert, I'm like, there was a lot to be desired from him, and I'm starting to question whether or not he can be a top 5 quarterback. I'm not judging based on talent. I'm not judging based off whether or not he'll be there with for the next 5 years because obviously he'll be there because of the talent. But I'm just judging, can this guy be a top 5 quarterback within the AFC and let alone the NFL as a whole? That's what I was judging it off on.
Yeah, I mean, and he has had a lot of weapons to work with over the years. There have been some questions with injuries to certain players on offense. Their offensive line wasn't the best when Herbert first got here, although it has improved dramatically ever since. And the coaching has been horrendous. So there are some excuses that are pretty legitimate when you look at it. But can we give a little bit, at least a little bit, of blame on Justin Herbert? Like, because I meant, as I mentioned when I previously brought up Mac Jones, it can't all be not the quarterback's fault. He's the most it's either the quarterback is the most important position on the field, or it's none of his fault. You can't have both. I happen to believe that the quarterback he takes some blame when your team doesn't do well.
Yeah, I agree. And everybody likes to point at his stat sheet. And they're like, oh my God, but look at the numbers he puts up every year. Oh, he's a perennial Pro Bowler. He's this, he's that. Like, I'm sorry, but his numbers and everything he does, his numbers, his accomplishments, they're empty calories because he can't convert numbers into wins. He's not going to make it out of the AFC West, especially now with Mahomes. He can't outduel Mahomes. He's not a threat in the playoffs. And it seems like no matter how good that team is, he's just going to keep coming up short.
Again, I don't want to rush Justin Herbert because we all see the talent that he has and we still think he's going to be a tremendous quarterback. But at the same time, it's like this is the time where you need to prove it now. We've given you leeway. Even as after the playoffs, we're still giving you leeway. It's now time for you to prove what you got now, because you have the weapons around you. They just added you another weapon through the draft. It's time to put up or shut up. And I believe this team will still make the playoffs, but I'm not sure how far they'll go within the playoffs, considering the AFC West and the rest of the AFC as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, their performance in this past postseason was pathetic. Mm-hmm. You're facing a rookie quarterback. I mean, well, an extremely talented, well, not rookie quarterback. You know what I mean.
Rookie in the playoffs.
His real rookie season without Urban Meyer. How about that? And Trevor Lawrence. You're facing a quarterback with very little, who's extremely talented, granted, but very little experience, who showed his lack of experience in the first half of the game, and you still couldn't close it out with a quarterback who is in his third season. That is horrendous. And this is a Chargers team that was expected to do a lot more than they did this past postseason. The least they could have done was made it to the divisional round, and they could not. So that was just pathetic right there. And you could put a lot of it on the coach, because how the hell do you mismanage such a large lead like that, 27-3, and still manage to keep your job with one of the better quarterbacks in the league, as far as we can tell?
Yeah, that's a. And once again, a lot of people like to blame Brandon Staley for that, right? And I mean, I understand it. I mean, I understand like why he gets the blame that he gets. But you have to remember, Justin Herbert did not play a very good game. I mean, can we all admit that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to find his actual stats from that game. Yes. 58% completion percentage, 273 yards, and a touchdown. That's literally it. And the fact that the Chargers were up 27-3, yet he only ever scored one touchdown, you could argue that they weren't even up because of him. They were up despite him.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I'm sorry. The numbers don't back you up one touchdown. And if you take that away, they're still up 20-3.
But 273 yards and a touchdown is still a solid game. I'm not going to hear. I'm not going to sit.
Game going to win you the playoffs.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he had a great game, that he was playing out of his mind. I'm just saying he didn't suck. He wouldn't be a liability to the point where you blow a 27-3 lead. That's all I'm saying. He contributed with a touchdown pass.
when you're not moving the ball, it becomes a liability because you're not
Exactly.
on the pass.
Well, if you have 273 yards, that's not terrible.
But it's not.
Yeah, but they
threatening
still
either.
didn't win. And apparently not terrible wasn't enough to win that game.
I know, but I just think that shouldn't be enough. That shouldn't be enough to blow
Or
a
maybe it's the
27
57,
to
or maybe it's the
3
58%
lead.
completion percentage, which is
I didn't like. Yeah,
very
that's a bad
below
part. That's
yeah.
bad.
Yeah. So it's not even that the yards he was making a lot of throws, or he was taking a lot of throws, but he wasn't making them.
How many throws?
I literally just exited out of that. I'll be right back.
Please get it back.
I'm
just trying to figure that out because it has been a long time since
He
that
had
playoff
43 attempts.
game.
Yeah. And
That's
so
bad.
don't lecture me that he can't move or that it's not his fault. 273 yards is good. 273 yards on 43 attempts is awful. That is abysmal.
That's Dak Prescott like.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Okay. All right. You got me there. You got me there. 273 yards is still not terrible.
On 43 attempts, I disagree.
I know.
And here's the thing. I'll give him a little bit of bail because it's not like the run game was doing him any favors. However, if you realize the run game's not doing its part because the line just couldn't get any movement from the Jacksonville D, it becomes incumbent on you to get the ball moving through the air. And if you can't do that and your drives stall out, you're leaving your defense out there for a pretty long time. And once Mike Davis went down, they were kind of stuck because they couldn't run their specific coverage anymore. And that just basically let everything open up for the Jacksonville offense. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yep.
The offense can't stall out at that point. Otherwise, you're leaving your defense high and dry.
Yeah. I mean, you're completely right there. That was a pathetic performance by the Chargers. I mean, holy crap. I mean, just especially relative to what they were supposed to be before that season started. They barely squeaked into the playoffs. They should have at least won one playoff game, and they couldn't even do that when Jacksonville spotted them a 27-3 lead.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Trevor Lawrence is a pretty badass quarterback, and he's going to be pretty good this year. But that doesn't excuse the poor performance by the Chargers all around. Defense, offense, everything. All right, we're up against the clock. Speaking of coaches, speaking of Brandon Staley, he might make an appearance in this next segment where we talk about coaches on the hot seat heading into the 2023 NFL season. That's next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88, Secret Weapon Consulting, Adam Wright, CJ Medeiros, Justin Tucker with you as always. All right, so on the last segment, we covered quarterbacks who are on the hot seat. Who's the other most important position on the field with offense, defense? The head coach. Who are some head coaches who are on a short leash going into this season? CJ, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, you were talking about Brandon Staley, right? But I'm not gonna, take the low-hanging fruit there. I mean, one of you guys can get it. But hear me out. This might sound crazy, but have you considered Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? So imagine you're the Buccaneers and you win a Super Bowl, and then you make it to the second round of the playoffs the following year. And then you win your division seemingly by the grace of God because your whole division is terrible and you didn't even have a winning season. And then you get smacked to reality by the Cowboys. And such is the case of Todd Bowles. So he took over for the sudden retirement of Bruce Arians. And if the Jets are any indication, Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator, but I don't think he should be a head coach. And this year, it's going to get harder because they lost some pieces, like Shaq Mason, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Tom Brady, Cameron Brate. And now your quarterback's going to be Baker Mayfield. Really? Huh?
Shake and bake.
Ugh. And then if he fails, you have your former second rounder, Kyle Trask, who I'm sorry, should not have been a second round pick. But that's a story for another day. It's just, and when you look at how pathetic the rest of your division is, and the fact that you, with that talent on your roster, can't win your division, I'm sorry. It might be time for them to look in a different direction. And I think they're going to aim for a small rebuild, definitely get like a quarterback, maybe like retool the roster. And I think part of that rebuild has to include a new coach. Because Todd Bowles, plain and simple, will not lead you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and I've always liked Todd Bowles. I've been rooting for him his entire professional career in the NFL as a head coach, but it just seems apparent that he's best as an defensive coordinator and nothing more than that. And it's sad to say because he has a good head on his shoulders. He's a very professional head coach or even just defensive coordinator, but it's clear that he just can't do it on offense. He's way too conservative. And if you can only manage an 8-9 season with Tom Brady at quarterback and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in an offense where they were just an air show the year prior and the year before that tells me that you are the problem. With that being said, though, there's a lot of other factors that are going to play. There's a lot of other factors that are going to play into the Bucs' downfall, including Tom Brady being gone. One of the pick that I have. So we talked about the Chargers. We talked about Justin Herbert before. Brandon Staley deserves a massive piece of the blame going into this season, and we could put a lot of blame on the quarterback too. But whether we like it or not, between the quarterback and the coach always goes first. And we can all agree Brandon Staley is lucky to still have his job right now as it is. And we're going into a make or break year where they have improved on offense. So it's all on Brandon Staley to make this work. If he can't do it, if it's another season like last year or the year prior, then he's gonna be without a job, and he's going to be looking for, just begging for anything as a special teams, an offensive coordinator, an assistant coach somewhere next year, or he'll be at the car wash, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. And something like with Staley is, let alone last year, he shouldn't even had a job last year. Remember what happened with the Raiders?
Yeah. I do.
He should have been fired after that, if I'm being honest.
Yep. I agree. No arguments here.
I don't even know where to begin because I have a few head coaches in my mind, but I'm not sure which one to go. I think I'll go down south to Texas and I'll pick on Mike McCarthy. Oh my, he's just an easy target for me because one playoff win, three playoff appearances. That playoff win was against the Buccaneers, who everybody knew shouldn't have been in the playoffs in the first place because of just how bad the NFC South was last year. And overall, once they went to the next round, you saw how bad they were when they lost to the San Francisco 49ers 19-12 with their franchise quarterback not doing anything to help them get the win. It got so bad that they even went on their social media to blame the quarterback. And I'm looking at the head coach, I'm like, can't you do something to help your quarterback out? Call some different plays, help your defense out, do something. And when I look at Mike McCarthy, he doesn't inspire me to think that he is the coach for this Dallas Cowboys team. I think a better coach would get better results with the weapons and pieces surrounding it. I think the defense will play a lot better. I think the offense would be better if they had a better offensive-minded coach. Not to say that Mike McCarthy is bad. I think he's just dated, I guess is the best way. I think Dak Prescott would play monumentally better if they had a better head coach. So I think it might be a make or break year for Mike McCarthy, specifically if Jerry Jones is looking at this and like, I put pieces around you and you still can't get the job done, and Dak Prescott still continues to look like this, considering what we're paying him. Not gonna lie, he actually might be on a hotter seat than we think.
See, maybe he's on a hotter seat than we think, but I just don't know if we could put him on the hot seat. Because as much as the Dallas Cowboys have been choke artists during the postseason, they win a lot of regular season games and generate a lot of buzz throughout the NFL. For how mediocre that they are called by the public, they always wind up winning games some way, somehow. And they kind of have the most balanced roster that they have had in years.
Mhm.
So they're going to wind up with a bunch of regular season wins. They'll probably make the postseason. They might screw around and win the division. Now, what they do in the postseason is going to be one thing, and it might cost McCarthy his job, but this regular season is just going to be so good for the Cowboys that it will just overshadow the idea that maybe Mike McCarthy should not be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys, because they've been having issues even without him. When they had Jason Garrett, and they still kept him for years on end.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up. You know, I hate to say it, but McCarthy probably isn't even on the hot seat because Jason Garrett was just as terrible as he was, and Jason Garrett was kept around long past his expiration date. And that's the same thing with McCarthy. In fact, I remember when McCarthy was first hired, I said, okay, yeah, you basically just hired a bigger Jason Garrett. That's basically what he is. Maybe with like less clapping, but that's neither here nor there. It's so awful just the way the Cowboys like have set themselves up. I mean, nobody thought Mike McCarthy was going to deliver them to a trophy. I mean, it was painfully obvious, you know, that he was carried by Aaron Rodgers, and once Rodgers went down, he got exposed. And it's just, you can give him only so much talent, but if there's no true like Rodgers level player to carry him, then I'm sorry, it's not going to work. And the worst part is, I know he's probably not going to get fired, you know, barring a spectacular collapse. But so long as they stay a regular season team, he's going to keep his job.
Yeah, unfortunately, he will because it is the Cowboys. But I just thought someone who should be on the hot seat should be Mike McCarthy, and if not him, we got to look at the Raiders and look at Josh McDaniels. Is his name?
Yeah, Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, I think he should be on the hot seat considering what we thought the Raiders should be and what they are right now.
Oh yeah, and Josh McDaniel. At least McCarthy leads the Packers. I'm living in 2018. At least the Cowboys can win some regular season games, make the playoffs, maybe win the division. One of those things. The Raiders haven't even been good enough to do that. And they actually kind of have the talent to do it. They're right up there with Dallas in terms of talent, I would say. Maybe not on the defensive side of the ball, but on offense, they're right there with them. It's like, and Josh McDaniels, I believed going into this season that maybe he has some potential as a head coach because of his job, because I happen to believe he did a solid job as the Patriots offensive coordinator. I thought maybe he could do something. Couldn't have been more wrong. That guy blew. And with the amount of leads that they did blow over this past season, if they won half of those games, they would have been a postseason team. But they're not. They wound up being a top 7 pick. Just let that sink in for a second. Holy crap. That is bad. But that's kind of an obvious one. Can I mention Bill Belichick, please?
No.
Hold up. I am nothing if not fair. Let's hear him out.
No, I'm not letting this man cook. I'll hear him out.
No. Let's just hear him out. We heard you out. You heard me out. It's only fair.
Now,
Let's-
this is more of a guy who should be on the hot seat versus will be, because it just does not look like this guy is going to be out in the next year. He won't. His name is Bill Belichick, and Robert Kraft might be getting a little frustrated with him, but he's not. I don't think he will pull the trigger anytime soon. But I mean, his drafting has been suspect. His coaching is good on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, it's same on in drafting and free agency. He is a defensive guru. He is very good at picking players. I mean, like, how hard is it to find a corner, like a legitimate, not only starting corner, but top one, undrafted or in the late rounds? Belichick does it all the time. But most of the time, those corners are found in the first round of the draft. But he finds them routinely. On offense, he's taking guys in the first and second round who wind up being afterthoughts in a year's time. I mean, N'Keal Harry sucks. You guys remember Josh Boyce too? Guy they took in the second round.
Was that 2013 or 2012?
2013.
Yeah, because I remember Aaron
2012.
Dobson. That was something.
Dobson didn't work out. He worked out for a little bit when he was healthy.
I mean, yeah, he got hurt. Also, I will die on this hill. He wasn't a second round pick, but Malcolm Mitchell's not a draft bust. Debate a wall.
Yeah, but he got hurt.
Yeah, he's not a bust. Like, if you get a season-ending injury after your first year, you're not a bust. You can't control that.
Yeah, but then they let him go after that, which is kind of
he never would have come back.
Which
His
is
knee
kind of
was
their
destroyed.
fault. Yeah,
He was
and then
never going to play again.
Then he sued the team after that, which was, I mean, I kind of understand it, but
yeah. Well, did he win the suit or no? Because I never heard what happened after that. Did they settle out of court?
I never did either. I'm just saying, Bill Belichick, with how questionable he has been on offense, he deserves some blame for that. Because he brought it. It's not, you can blame the defensive coordinator playing offense. Who brought him in?
Yeah.
Who brought him in?
Amen.
Who brought him in?
Adam, may I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I simultaneously agree and disagree, because when you say Bill Belichick should be on the hot seat, with all due respect, you're not really describing Bill the coach. You're describing Bill the GM. And in a way, I hate to say it, but Bill, he's still a darn good coach, and we all know it. Best coach of all time, some would say. But make no mistake, Bill the I've said this umpteen times, Bill the GM is actively hindering Bill the coach. And Bill, in a way, holds New England hostage because he's got an ego on him, and he will say, fine, if you kick me out as GM, I'm just going to take my ball and go home. That's what he'll do. If you say you are no longer GM, he will quit as coach. So,
I question his abilities as an offensive head coach, though.
Yeah,
That's why they brought in Bill O'Brien.
I understand too, but it's like, yeah, but I mean, they've had some decent offenses under him, so like, we'll see. I think the jury's kind of still out, but it's just it's the GM part that needs to go. But unfortunately, you have to take one with the other, which now raises an interesting question. Do you roll the dice and tell Bill to take a hike? Because allegedly Gerard Mayo is waiting in the wings, no? I mean, why else would he stick around just to get an unnamed position?
Again, it's just not going to happen this year, and not after this year either, because his name is Bill Belichick, and I don't think Kraft has had enough of him to the point where he's ready to fire him like right now or even after this season. It's just,
I've heard if they have like a bad record, Bill might get canned, but that was just rumors.
I could be wrong, and I hope I am if this all continues. But I mean, I just don't see it happening anytime soon. It could happen in a couple years down the road, but after this season, I just don't think so. It's just too much, and it almost feels like an overcorrection to go that far after this season.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we have any other picks?
No, not right now.
Nope.
Nothing. All right. Well, that ends our content for today. Do we have any other thoughts before we end tonight's show?
Nope.
Go Lakers, go Celtics.
No, bad. Lakers, shame. LeBron likes China.
All right. Well, we will get back to you guys on what we are going to be doing for this summer. It's going to be very different from last off season, and there is a strong possibility that we will be going throughout the summer once a week, just because we have very busy schedules. They're going to be great episodes, and we are going to do everything we can to preview this season. Player rankings are going to be coming back, possibly division previews, and we would just be doing it on all on the same show. So we will have plenty of content for you guys. We're just trying to figure out how to structure it. So thank you for all your patience while we figure that out. We will have it for you shortly. Likely it will begin in the beginning of June. So kind of the beginning of summer as the springtime concludes. But we appreciate your patience. But without further ado, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. We have new episodes out on Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.